What is up, everybody out there on YouTube? My name is Bryson Michael RC, and today we are going to be doing the 3-month review of the Creality Ender 3. Now this video is going to be broken down into 2 different parts. We're going to just kind of talk about the printer here for a second, and then we're going to turn around and show you guys at the end some of the small things that I've printed with this and some of the larger things that I've printed with this. Right now it's in the process of printing this cup that I designed on Tinkercad. The reason it's running is because I wanted to show you just how quiet this machine actually is, what it sounds like while it's running. And I'm just talking at a regular volume. This is, in my opinion, it's a pretty quiet printer. Let's get into it. So we're gonna start right off. You may notice that the bed doesn't look that great. There's a lot of spots in it. There's a little section here, and we've also got bigger clips. These are the clips that it originally came with. You can see just how much bigger these clips are on it. Now this bed, the reason it comes with clips is because this bed is removable. You can take this black part off, and you can also replace it with better beds that you can buy on Amazon. We'll get into that when we start upgrading this machine and making upgrade videos. We'll get way more in depth on the bed, because the first part of this review that I'm going to talk about is that the bed is not that great. I would suggest probably one of the first things that you do when buying an Ender 3 is to upgrade the bed. Go on Amazon and find you one of those magnetic beds or something. You can see some of these holes here. When you level the bed, you want to level it while it's hot. If you're leveling your bed while it's cold, a little piece of plastic could be sticking out of the bottom or something like that and affect the way that you level the bed. So you want to get everything hot and warmed up and going, and then start leveling the bed. These burn marks, and you guys can see really close here, are spots where the bed was too high up and the hot end actually went into the bed, and now that's permanent. Another thing too is you can see kind of lines and creases here and there. There's a lot of these little holes. It burns through it super easy. And then when you remove it, it's a bit flexible, so you can pop the piece right off of it. Any little crease or anything that goes into the bed automatically stays, and there's really nothing you can do in order to get rid of it. Some of the printers you can get are like the Anycubic i3 Mega with the Ultra Base on it, which is kind of a glass top. You can buy a glass top for this, which I would suggest over this. Instead of this, you can see that it's sticking onto it pretty good. You have to really level it out in order to get your pieces to stick to it. The first layer, if you don't level it like precisely perfectly, the first layer can be a little bit all over the place, and a lot of times it won't stick onto it. So you have to sit here and really level this thing out. And below you can see just how big these turning knobs are to level the bed. Problem with them is they're not tight. So just a tiny little bit, I'm trying not to bump it, because just a tiny little bump can move this thing. And because they're so big, it moves it a lot. Let me show you guys a comparison really quick. This is on the Anycubic i3 Mega. You can see just how small the turning knobs are. You adjust it in tiny little bits. These ones are gigantic, and so when you turn it, it's not as precise. It's making big movements up and down, and they're just not tight. They don't stay. So the bed, the whole design of the bed and stuff, the way that these are gigantic and aren't tight, and the way that the actual black part of the bed is, bed top, not a huge fan. Like I said, you can do better. You can print the knobs here, and you can order a new bed. So it's not a huge deal, but right now we're reviewing the Ender 3 as it is when you buy it. So when we get into upgrades and such, we'll show you more on the upgrades. Now, all around, this printer is a really good printer. I haven't had too much trouble with it. I haven't had to change out in 3 months. I haven't had to change out the hot end. It's been doing really good. I haven't had to do hardly anything with the extruder. The gantry runs really good. I have not taken it apart or done anything to it ever since I put it together and ran it for the very first time. I haven't had to open any of this up down here or go through any of that and open it up and mess with any cords or anything. So that's awesome. And also the power supply has been fantastic. I haven't had to open that up or do anything. If you guys remember right, on my 3-month review of the Anycubic i3 Mega, I was already changing the power supply out. To me, it's lasted. I mean, all the major pieces have lasted. They're good. They're good. They're solid. It's solidly built. Really easy to put together. And really, besides the bed, I love everything else about it. Everything. That's why I wanted to tell you about the bed first, because that's my negative part. This is really easy to learn once you get it down. It's just one knob that you just scroll through. I mean, it's super easy to get down once you get it down. The one main thing that I don't like is it doesn't tell you what the file name is here. And a lot of times when doing cosplay pieces, you can get about 16 different pieces, and a lot of the printers would show that you're printing piece 15, you know, because you could forget at some point, be printing piece 15 and then getting ready to print the next one and forget which one you're on. So it's good to come back over here and look and see what piece you're on the entire time. It's not necessary when you're printing like just single pieces at a time, but when something's this small, when the bed is this small, and you're printing a big cosplay helmet that can be 16 to 18 pieces, it's nice to have the file name on there. That's the one thing that I don't like about this. And it doesn't tell you what percentage done. It has this bar that goes along and kind of shows you when you're almost done. But even when the bar's all the way over here to the side, you don't know if you're at like 95, 96, 97%. And that just kind of, you just have to watch the bar go up. I'd rather have the percentage than have the bar. I mean, it's really good. And I would say, when you're not making multiple piece prints that have a lot of pieces, I mean, it's perfect for any of that stuff. But when you have a lot of pieces, you may want to just write it down on the side, or keep a maybe find something over here to mark down which one you're on or something like that. That's just kind of a letdown. Those are really the only two things that I disliked about it. Everything else can be upgraded. It can be a really good printer, or it can be a really bad printer. It's all up to you. Everything on this can be upgraded to make it better. If you know how to dial this thing in, then you're going to be doing really good. And I would suggest anybody out there to go in and really dial it in. Look at the pieces, see what it's doing wrong, and just dial it slowly. Eventually you can get this printing really good. And I seen a video of somebody who said without a specific tube, without a specific hot end, and without a specific extruder, you can't get really good pieces. And I've found that I've gotten just as good of pieces on the Ender 3 as I do with the Anycubic i3 Mega, and I've gotten some really good pieces from the Anycubic i3 Mega. I just kept working with it, kept dialing in, and I finally got the settings just perfect on it. Now this right here, you can see it's at 0.2 millimeter layer height, and I designed this on Tinkercad. I haven't really messed around with this. In fact, whenever I went and set it in the slicer, I didn't really mess around with too much of it because I just wanted to print this off. It's a cup that's going to have my name and stuff on it, so I wanted it for one of the videos. So this wouldn't be a prime example, but like I said, I'll be showing you guys different prints towards the end of this video that you guys can see and see it for yourselves. You will need to print pieces off to make it better. For example, you will need to print this fan cover off. It doesn't come with a fan cover. That fan sucks directly down in here, and I purposefully left this so you guys could see just how much plastic will fall down into here and all around in here. So it's a good idea to get that fan cover printed and put on there. It's got a little space under here that's really awesome. I got this from Thingiverse. It's just a little drawer that you can put into here. And then I got this It's a Gopro mount. And this is really cool. I'll show you guys this. This was actually printed on the Ender 3. One of the first pieces that I printed on the Ender 3 before I got it really dialed in. And you can already tell just how good it was because I printed this without any supports on basic settings that come in Cura for the Creality Ender 3. And you can see it's not the greatest underneath, but it did a decent job for the settings that it was on, for not having any supports. And you can see just how wide that curve was. So it did this 100% without any supports. So that's awesome. So like I said, the fan is necessary. You'll want to get that for sure. Another necessary piece that you'll want to get is this little piece up here, which holds your filament out, and then this little piece here that keeps your filament away from that drive screw there for the Z-axis, or else your filament will be right on that Z-axis screw. Those are 3 pieces now that I would say you need to print right off the bat. And also, this is a necessity right here. This is the Z motor, and I can leave a link in the description for this. Now your Z motor, whenever you first build it, right up here it has a little bracket that screws right into this part here. But what happens is as the gantry goes up and down, it actually pushes your Z screw out that way the further it goes up. And it's not very good on your motor. And after a while, you can print the first, I would say, I probably printed the first 2 months with that bracket on there. And I only recently changed this out because after a while, it's going to start wearing on your motor. And as your gantry goes to a certain point, it's just going to stall and your motor's going to make like a sound. I went off and printed this bracket off, and this bracket sets it back just enough, and you can see the little space that's in between here. It's probably like not even a millimeter, maybe a millimeter gap in there instead of that bracket setting it flush against this part here, and it made all the difference. Fixed it instantly, and it's just been running a ton better ever since I put that bracket in there. So I would say, just to save your motor, because more than likely, since I ran it the way that I ran it for 2 months, printing constantly on it, this Z motor is probably about shot. I'm probably going to need another Z motor here soon. So when you first get a Creality Ender 3, I would suggest getting this, and I'll leave that in the description. Down here you can see there's 2 different size screws on it, and that's because this screw came with the Creality Ender 3. And then the little nuts on the inside came with the Creality Ender 3. I had 3 of these nuts left over after building the Creality, and 2 of these screws that all I needed to do was go and buy a 3rd screw. And at my store, this is how big the screws were that fit the nut. So that's what I ended up using, but it works perfectly fine. So that's all that really matters. I showed in a live video fixing this entire thing using only the tools that Creality gave me. And although it's a little bit harder and it sucks a little bit more, you can do it. So if you don't have tools of your own, you do get them. That's why I would suggest getting this drawer, because in my drawer I keep all of the Creality Ender 3 tools, and you can see all the hex heads there. This is the bracket that was on that Z motor, and those are extra bolts and stuff that are in there. I just put all that in there, and it's right here with the printer whenever I need it. So that's perfect. So what I said in my live video is kind of how I'll end this review before showing you guys the pieces. Just kind of my final thoughts on this. It prints really good when you dial it in and get it dialed in. Also, it prints TPU really good. It prints TPU probably better than any of my other printers print, so that was one of the biggest pluses with it. I have not tried ABS. In 3 months, I've not tried ABS. I was told that it prints ABS really good, and I probably should print some ABS. I just haven't bought a roll of it. Because I don't really print in ABS. My other printer doesn't print in ABS very good at all, and you have to put it in a box and stuff, so it's like a whole ordeal and process, so I just haven't bought any. But TPU, flexible filament and stuff, it prints that really good. There are problems with this motor here I've heard of, and there are some gantry problems that people have had, but every problem that I've seen on the internet of people having with the Creality Ender 3, it's a super easy fix. So for $200 you get what you get. Okay, you get what you pay for. I always tell people that's the best way to think about things, is you get what you pay for. For $200, Creality took all their cheapest stuff and they put it into one printer. But the great thing about it is now you can take that cheaper printer and you can invest your own money in it throughout time, and you can get this printing just as good as any other printer by the add-on pieces that you print, or by pieces that you buy online from Amazon or something like that. You can get this up to par. And I think with the price of the new bed, because the bed is about $30, I think $20 to $30 for the new bed, that's magnetic and stuff. And for the price of some of the other things, and I don't even think you'll be spending another $100 in order to get it to print just like any other printer. I mean, so yes, you do have to do a little bit of extra work to it. You may want to get a new tube, you may want to get a better hot end, you may want to redo the fan area here. There's a lot of people that have redone this entire part on the gantry here. New fans that are a little bit more efficient and stuff. Also, you can this one's really easy to go into here and hook other stuff up to it. And I've even seen people online that have a self-leveler attached to this, and all sorts of other stuff, to where this is about this big. And just the fact that this gantry still performs as good as it does with all that extra stuff added to it and weight is a testament. And you can find a guy online who just shows you every one of those upgrades. I think it's really cool to have this printer for only $200 that you can modify, and you can keep modifying. And I'm sure if you wanted to make this bigger, you could easily. It's got stepper dampeners that you can add to it, which are awesome. That makes it even quieter. So it's already a quiet machine, but you can make it even quieter by adding those dampeners. And then I'm sure with the way that this is designed here, the CR10 is also designed with this same stuff, that you can make these bigger. You could put bigger ones on here to make it taller, and just take these out here, put your own machining in, so you don't have to use these screw holes, and just bring it up, bring it out. I haven't seen anybody make the Ender 3 bigger, but I'm positive you could. Positive you could. You'd probably have to make this better, or get an Ender 3 2, or get the upgraded Ender 3 to where this is a double instead of a single. That way you have a little bit more stability to it. But for this size, that doesn't really matter. And I wouldn't spend the extra money really on the upgraded one, because at this size, at this build volume, this is basically all you really need. And I think some people get it just for the reassurance of having more stability, but it has plenty of stability as it is. I'd say it's a great purchase for $200. Going out, getting a $200 printer, especially if you're a beginner printer and you want to just get into the 3D printing hobby. And then you can just start doing any upgrades you want and just keep upgrading, keep upgrading. Even the one thing that I dislike about this printer, I can upgrade easily, because the other bed tops are amazing from what I've seen online. They're magnetic, so I don't even think you need the clips. You probably should use clips for reinforcement, but I've heard that you don't even need clips. And that's a bad thing about clips. I hate clips because they take your build volume down. You can see I had to use these bigger ones because these smaller ones didn't hold it well enough, but it made my build volume go down. on both sides, which sucks. And then I've got to strategically place these. If I need to use an extra part of the build plate, then I have to strategically put these clips in specific areas so it doesn't mess with how the print goes, and that always sucks. But I'm hoping that the magnetic tops will take care of that, and I'll get the full build volume of the Ender 3. And then I'm gonna look into getting smaller knobs, maybe even some tighter springs. If the springs were tighter and it put more force on it, then this wouldn't turn so easily, and it would stay level for a longer period of time. So I'm going to look into the springs and the knobs and the magnetic bed, and we'll put those in the upgrade video when we start doing some upgrades to this. I'm debating on doing the self-leveling device that goes here. I'm also debating on attaching Raspberry Pi, which I've heard makes everything so much better. So there's still a few things that I want to upgrade, and I'll be making some upgrade videos, and I'll also be doing a separate video of all the add-on printable stuff that I've put on this. Although in this video you guys have seen now all the add-ons that I've had to this, except for the extruder Batman thing that I have on there. But there's still some other printable 3D print pieces that are upgrades that I want to add to this. But overall, it's a great printer. For $200, it's a great printer. You get what you get. And for $200, for being a $200 printer, I can't see how anybody could give this a bad review, because it is what it is. Now, if this exact printer was sold for $500, I would tell you not to get it, that there's better printers out there for less than $500 to get. And comparable, it's not that great of a printer, but for $200, you almost have to give this good marks, because this is the perfect printer to get people into 3D printing, to get people started in the hobby. And one of the best things that I think about getting people started in the hobby is also learning your machine. And when you do upgrades, you actually take parts of the machine apart and you learn about it. You'll learn more about your printer. And so by the time you get this printer for $200, you put the money in to mod it and you get it printing perfectly. By the time you decide to go out and get a better printer, then you're going to know so much about 3D printing and the process of 3D printing and stuff that you won't have to worry about any of that stuff. You just focus in on making 3D print STLs or something, you know, just take all that time and focus it on something else. Anyways, let's get on to the 3D models and show you guys a few of the 3D models that I printed off. Alright, so I didn't get a whole lot of stuff for you to see. Models and everything, but I've got a few things that'll do it some justice. So all these were printed off by the Ender 3, and I'll tell you, I've got some TPU here. I wish that I would have had a better piece, but actually if you go back to my Iron Man builds, if you get to the video where I'm printing the shoes were primarily printed by the Ender 3 with TPU, and it did a fantastic job. You can go back and see all that stuff. I make cosplay stuff, and it's really big, and there's a lot of post-processing stuff to it. So going and printing small little knickknacks and everything, to me, is just something I don't really like to do. So in preparation for this video, I got a few pieces out that were printed by the Ender 3, just to kind of show you a quick review of what the Ender 3 can do, what the prints kind of look like in general, in basic settings and stuff, and just kind of give you an idea behind it. If you tune the settings in and print it at a different layer height and things like that, you can get way better prints. Also, if you slow it down, you can get way better prints. But we'll start out with the TPU pieces. This thing prints some of the best TPU that I've seen, and there's really not much that you can say about it. This is printed in a 0.15 layer height and just a basic TPU, and it's flexible, it's really thin. These actually go together and cross, and you can see they're a little cushion for the printer, and they work fantastic, and it printed really quick. So prints TPU great. I wish I could show you more on the TPU, but if you go back to the Iron Man build videos that I have, just look at the shoe building parts, and you'll see the shoe parts that were printed with the Anycubic, and then see the shoe parts that were printed with the Ender 3, and the Ender 3 just blows it out of the water when it comes to TPU. So I love that about it. Next up is this cup that I created in Tinkercad. It was just a real fast cup. I needed a cup. and then I had to wait 7 hours for it to print. But I made this cup. You drink out of it, you get a happy face on the inside. It's got BMRC on the side for Bryce and Michael RC. It had a little bit of a mess up here at the top. It looks like it kind of skipped a layer or had something wrong with the Z-axis for a second. I'm not quite sure what happened right there all the way around. But other than that, it printed fantastically. And I'm sure if I'd have printed another one, it would have been just fine. Every now and then you're going to have a slip up. Any printer that you have, whether it's one of the better printers or one of the worst printers, you're still every now and then going to have a mess up or two. And this just so happened to have it. But it looks like it's all the way through, but I filled this all the way up to the top, nothing leaks. So it's fine for me, it's just a cup. But I thought it did a fairly fantastic job, and this was printed in 0.2 millimeter layer height. So you can really see all the layers on that, just to print it a little bit faster. So that's the cup. This is a belt buckle to a belt that I printed on the Ender 3, and this is flat on the bed here. And I had to use tape so you can see the lines of the tape because my bed just would not level. And like I said in the review, I hate the bed really bad. But it did a fantastic job on this. And this is 1.15 layer height. You can see the difference clearly in the layer height on this compared to the layer height on this. 0.2, 0.15. So it did a fantastic job. And this is on the upside, so you can see what it kind of looks like. That looks really cool. A lot of them you'll just see the lines going, and this one just looks checkered. It almost looks like that was flat on the ground or something. But it's a buckle. Let me show you the belt that goes to this. This is the belt, and this is the first time that I printed something like this. And I really kind of thought with the way that the Ender 3 was, that it wasn't going to print pieces that were movable, that printed all in one piece. This printed all together just like this, but with a little bit of space between it. And no supports. Well, it had a little bit of supports, I think, on it. But for the most part, it just printed like this. And it's actually fully movable. So you can stretch this all the way out. It's a belt. And it works perfectly fine. I wear this all the time now. I thought that was one of the coolest things, one of the coolest files that I found on Thingiverse. And it just did a fantastic job printing it. A lot better job than I thought it was going to do. And it just prints a little bit of support on the inside here to where whenever you get it off, you just kind of have to push real hard and you hear a break. And then it's not really a break, it's just busting off, I think, whatever piece stabilizes it on the inside. And then it moves fully. It's got this articulation in it, and it's an awesome STL file. I suggest anybody that's printing, go and print you one of these belts. This thing is just amazing. I'm not quite sure how the belt buckle goes on, but I printed it, and I'm going to figure it out because I think that going right on the front, Bryce and Michael RC, would be amazing. Totally worth it. Took like 20 hours to print. This is also in 0.15 layer height. So I think it took 23 hours to print actually. Pretty awesome piece. Here's a basic test piece that I wanted to do just to kind of show you how it does around rounded edges and stuff. This is printed in 0.2 layer height. So this thing would look so much better if it was printed in 0.15 or 0.1. It would take a whole lot longer. But I think this only took like a few hours for it to print, and it did a fantastic job. Now where the supports are at on the bottom, it did terrible. And again, this one had the tape on the bottom because this is the first test print that I printed after fixing it. It didn't do very good down below. Anywhere where there were supports, it looks terrible. Under the beak where there were supports looks terrible, but the support was only at 3%. So that could be a big part of it. If you put the support up to like 10% or something like that, and it wouldn't have added too much extra time, I'm sure that would have looked a lot better because all that is kind of filament falling down where it was only supported on small areas. But when it comes to the layers, you can really see. I wanted to put this in 0.2 so you could really see the different layers, and you can really see it on top of his head here. I think that looks really cool. His antennas are kind of falling off. That's a bit of the file itself, but just really, really thin. I thought it did a fantastic job up here. If you guys see my review of the Anycubic i3 Mega, I printed off those aliens from Toy Stories, and it has this little part that comes up, and it did not want to print it good. I mean, it printed the entire STL file perfectly, except for the little tiny part that came up here. And this is a lot smaller, and it goes at an angle, and it didn't have any supports, and the Ender 3 printed it just fine. So no problem with it at all. I mean, this file would look fantastic with a 0.15 layer height and probably a 10% support, and then maybe, you know, I don't think it really would need much infill, maybe just like a 3% infill. I think this has like a 3% infill in it as it is, but since it's like rounded like this, you really don't need much infill in this at all. So save some time, take the infill down, put the support up is what I would suggest for this, but it's a pretty nice piece for what it is. I wanted to show you guys this. When I was building the Stormbreaker, this is one of the pieces that I left printing, and then I ran out of filament, and the Ender 3 doesn't have a filament stop thing, so I misjudged how much filament I needed. I've kind of melted the inside all up because it had supports and stuff in it, but it ran out of filament. And this one actually is in the settings that I typically do for cosplay. And so I don't want to do a whole bunch of sanding and a whole bunch of filling in, and you can really see just how close the layers are together in this, how you can barely see layers. You can still see them, but these are under my settings, my full settings. I can't name them all off for you, but if you want to know what my settings are, just ask. It's a 0.15 millimeter layer height. Just phenomenal how you can see all the different texture and stuff, because this is a wooden piece. It's a Stormbreaker hammer, and plus it kind of shows how you can change the colors while the printer is running. Each one of these colors were changed while it was still running, and I have a video showing you guys how to do that, how to just push it into the extruder while the extruder's still going. It's just a fantastic piece to show you guys. We'll have this, and I'll show you guys those figurines. This is basically identical to the one that I showed you guys in a video of like home repairs and stuff. I printed the other one on the Anycubic, this one on the Ender 3, and the Ender 3 did an identical job. You can go back to that video and watch that video, and these two look exactly the same. I used the same filament and everything. The settings, I just got them dialed in. I had to do a little bit of tweaking and stuff for the Ender 3. The Anycubic's a little bit easier to set, but I did a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of working around on it, and it really paid off. It shows you what you can really do with that machine, and you can get identical prints to better machines. So the Anycubic's 350 and this one's 200, so it kind of shows you can get the same exact print quality. And I printed this absolutely 100% on what comes with the Ender 3, besides what I've printed off to fix it. So there's no extra bed, no extra tube, no different extruder, no different hot end or anything like that. This is printed with the same stuff it comes with, just by changing the settings. So if you want to go back and watch that video, you can see that this one is perfectly 100% identical, and it's wild that I got that good of a print. And it's 0.2 millimeter layer height. This one I did at like 35-40% infill to make it tough and strong. It's really heavy. This one was also printed all in one piece, so it's printed like this all together, and then the bolt is movable when it gets done printing. So that's two different things that have movable parts that printed all together in one, that I didn't have to put together after it was done. Both that you can do, this one and this one, with articulation, that you can do on the Ender 3, and it does a fine job on it. Dun. Dayman, fighter of the night man, champion of the sun. Sun, 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 sun. You're a master of karate and friendship for everyone. Dayman! These are the Nightman Cometh figurines, and I was so shocked to find these on Thingiverse. If you guys want the link to this, just ask me in the comments. I'll share the link with you. It's insane. One of my favorite shows in the world is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I put It's Always Sunny in the search bar, and the Nightman Cometh stuff popped up. It's amazing. So we've got Mac and Dennis, Charlie, Dee, and Frank. Frank's the Troll Toll. Dennis is the Dayman. Mac is the Nightman. I think he's just a son at the very end. Is that what you would call him in the play, is the son? And then you got Dee, which plays the girl, the waitress, or whatever. The female antagonist of the Nightman Cometh storyline. But it's fantastic. I was so excited about getting this. Just to be clear, I've never had sex with a child. And he's like, oh, I was a little boy, the little baby boy was me. I once was a boy, but now I am a man. Anybody who's never watched It's Always Sunny or The Nightman Cometh is probably watching this review going, what did I stumble across? This dude is freaking retarded. Just go watch it. Just go watch it. Alright, these are little figurines. Let me talk about them for a second. They printed off really good, and these had a 3% support on it, and there were supports all over the place. You can see kind of under her arms where the supports were there. You can see kind of like under his feet, and kind of where the overhang is there, where the supports were. But it did a fantastic job, and typically tiny little figurines like this, even the Anycubic that I have, struggles. Again, has like a tiny little stick thing like that, and it printed it just fine. This has a staff with it. This one you can really see the detail and stuff on it, and I really like this Troll Toll figurine. You can really see his dreads or whatever on top. This is printed in a 0.2 millimeter layer height, which is fantastic because I accidentally printed it in that. I was thinking going smaller like this, I needed to bring the layer height to probably about 1, maybe 0.15, or 0.1, maybe 0.15. But I just left the settings the same, put it on 0.2 millimeter because I had printed the duck off, the Psyduck, in 0.2 millimeter layer height, and printed this immediately afterwards. And you can see the bottom. It's got that nice smooth surface to it of the bed. Did a fantastic job printing that part there, and you can see just how detailed it got with every crease of his coat. The arms there, just all the detail. He's got all of his fingers. That's fantastic. A lot of figurines like this, typically, the fingers have to be supported. There has to be support on the fingers. And a lot of times when you're taking off support, the fingers are so thin and brittle that it snaps the fingers off too. And he's got all of his fingers. And he's got his nose and all of his hairs and his pointy ears and stuff. I just thought this figurine turned out fantastic for what the settings were. The only one that I did have trouble with was Dayman, or Dennis. One of his fingers did come off, and this is the only figurine that I had where one of his fingers came off. He has 4 fingers. Well, no, 2 of his fingers came off is what it looks like. His thumb's still on, but his index and middle finger are gone. But otherwise, the model turned out fantastic. And then this one has like a little less detail. Just a fantastic piece. It's awesome. You could play some games with this stuff. You can see all of Mac's fingers. He has all of his fingers. Some are a little misshapen, but they're still there. The fingers are the hardest things for these little tiny figurines like this. They're so hard to print on some of these Bowden extruder printers. But the Ender 3, it just did a fantastic job. I mean, it is what it is. And you can make these bigger, and I'm sure you can make them bigger and clean them up, and they'll look so much better than this. In fact, the original files, this is 200% of the original file. So the original file is actually even smaller than this. I just didn't trust it, so I had to make it a little bit bigger. We'll look at D, and then we'll look at Charlie, and then we'll be done. So there's D. She's starting to sing, and it's got, you can see her apron there in the front, the detail in her dress, the waves. You can see those big old shoulder things that she had. I'm gonna rip the pits. This dress is too tight. I'm gonna rip the pits. That's what she kept saying. But it looks like she's right in the middle of that song. Just to be clear. That's a fantastic piece. And here's Charlie, my favorite one of all of them. Just awesome. You can see his tie there, his belt buckle. Pretty good belt buckle shot. Guy with a top hat. Doesn't really look like Charlie in the face, but you can tell what character it is. He's got all of his fingers, all 5 fingers on both hands. And printed these all together at once. So it didn't just print one at a time. They printed all of these at once and just did a fine job with them. Probably would have done better if I printed them one at a time, because then the hot end has to go from one and then to the next, and then by the time it gets back to it, it's cooled all the way down. Usually if it's consistent and continuous, then your layer lines don't get as thick as that. But with 0.2% layer height, I mean, what are you going to do? It's pretty good for, you can see right on top of his top hat what I'm talking about when it comes to the layer height. See the lines just clearly, I can't get this thing to focus, but you can clearly see the lines even out of focus. So, but these are awesome. Like, you could play The Nightman Cometh Monopoly. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Try to make it a little bit of entertaining by putting the Nightman Cometh figurines in here. And if you're a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, leave me a comment. Let me know what your favorite parts and stuff are. Kind of a long video. I tried to go as in-depth as possible. And really, when you're talking about all the pros and cons of this thing, you can't make a super short video. And so I wanted to get as detailed as I possibly can. Anyways, my name is Bryce Michael RC. I hope you had a fantastic day. Hope you have a fantastic week. Join me Sundays at 4 o'clock p.m. for the live Sundays right here at Bryce Michael RC on YouTube. And we'll see you guys later.